welcome back. Today we're going to melt some brass to make custom guards for one of my new knives. I've got play sand in this pan. It's about 1.5 inches deep, and I'm pressing my cutout. I just used a piece of 1/4 inch plywood, made a cutout, and I'm pressing it into this damp, not wet, but damp sand to make the pattern I'm going to pour melted brass into. Now I'm using play sand, non-silica placed sand. Alright, we just gotta clean this up and make sure I got a good solid edge all the way around. I got a screw in the middle that I can take in and out to swap sides, because I want to make one side and then another side. I don't want to make two of the same sides. So let's get started. Alrighty, got the forge warming up. Yes, I got coal or charcoal in there, forced air coming in through this black iron pipe. And I got a bunch of brass here, and I got a bunch of brass fittings already in there. And anywhere I can pick up spare brass, I always keep spare brass around. That way I can melt it down and make what I need. Now this is very hot. Even though I don't have the air going right this minute, it's still 1500 degrees. The bottom part of my crucible, which is what I'm throwing the brass in, is red hot. So you just got to be careful, not burn yourself. Alrighty, I think it's time to get this thing going again. I'm adding just a little, well, actually a good amount of boric acid. That helps keep the all the zinc in the brass from burning away. It actually helps the brass heat faster and liquefy easier. Alright, I've got the air back on, adding some more charcoal, which is a dirty mess anytime you touch it. And you can see in the middle of the crucible the acid is bubbling. That's a good sign. I need to get this coal down in here so I can get the lid on this thing. Get this crucible hot. We've got to get this thing up to about 2200 degrees. And that'll make our brass pour out just like water. One thing you need to remember is this is extremely hot. It can be extremely dangerous. So eye protection is a must. You don't want to be breathing acid, so you should probably wear a respirator, and just be aware. Really hot stuff. Well, somehow the pin came out of my tongs. So I'm going to have to improvise by using channel locks, which is going to make this a little more difficult. Let's pour. And I'm getting really sloppy because this thing is really hard to hold on to. It is burning my hand. But even though it was a little more sloppy than I'd liked, we got it poured. It's all nice and setting up. You can see the smoke coming off the sand. It's still hot. It is very hot. You don't want to touch that. Okay, so here we go. This is the one of the sides we casted. I got this piece sticking out here. We're going to do a little bit of grinding. I'm going to use my pliers to hold onto this brass because brass gets hot quick. I think this belt's going to do it. This belt's just about wore out. Maybe we're going to take off this thin piece and then we're going to change it. we got our new belt on here, and it takes material off a lot easier. And when it takes material off a lot easier, it doesn't get as hot as fast. I'm just going to do the top and the back a little bit. There's a pretty good chunk of brass in the front. I don't want to take off with the grinder. I'm going to cut it off with my cutting wheel, just because it's a pretty good sized piece of brass, and why waste it? And I'm going to try as delicate as I can with this thing to cut off this big chunk on the front, and I'm going to stop every little bit and make sure I'm not cutting off the wrong part. Brass is pretty soft. I can cut right through it, but you know, you could damage it real quick too. I don't want to have to melt this all down and do it all over again, so don't cut off the wrong spot. Alright, looks like we got it. I'm going to grab these pliers. And ooh, see the steam just come right off there? The brass is hot. And there's a big chunk. I'll set it aside and melt it again. And we're back to grinding. I'll get this thing shaped out a little bit. I don't want to shape it out too much until I get the blade all done and ready, and get the other side cleaned up and get them both put together, and get all the cutting marks out from the cutting wheel, and all the little pits out from the sand form. Got us a nice clean piece of brass. Alright, well, we got our piece shaped. It's not to the exact shape, but we will match it up with our blade once we get our blade done. Alright, so I got my cutout for my blade, and I'm putting the brass up here about where it's going to go. It's a little big, but I can take some off and make it fit. I don't want to take any more off until I have the actual blade in hand. And then I'll make two sides, and of course it will not be nowhere near this thick. It'll be rounded and taken down quite a bit. If I had a bandsaw, I'd cut it down through the middle. It's almost thick enough to be perfect for both sides. But thank you for watching.